What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Happy Memorial Day out there. I hope you all had a great weekend. My name's CJ, and in today's video, we're going to be checking out some NBA player props over on PrizePicks. We've got some points, rebounds, and a three-point prop that I'm interested in today. So we're definitely going to be diving into the two-game NBA slate. We've got the Philadelphia 76ers at the Washington Wizards and the Utah Jazz at the Memphis Grizzlies as the late game. So I hope all you guys out there had some success over the weekend. I've been having some pretty good success here lately, especially over the weekend, with going a little contrarian on some of the picks. We'll talk a little bit more about that, though, as we get into the video. So if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. Make sure notifications are turned on because all of the picks that I talk about in today's video have a shelf life of about an hour, and then they will be changing. So PrizePicks has agreed to freeze the picks in the video for about an hour, and then after that hour time is up, then things can just go wild. They could go up, they could go down, depending on which way the action is going in on those picks. So if you haven't played on PrizePicks before, now's a fantastic time to do so. If you look at the banner at the bottom of this video, you're going to get a 100% instant deposit match on your first deposit up to $100. So if you put in $50, they'll match it and give you $50 more to play with, giving you a total of $100. If you want to go ahead and max it out and take full advantage of the promo and put in $100, they're going to match that $100 and you'll have $200 to get yourself going over on PrizePicks. All you have to do is use promo code Curry. I'll leave a link down in the description so you can go and get signed up for PrizePicks today. All right, so with that one out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about two things here, and the first one is going to be the first game, which is the Philadelphia 76ers at the Washington Wizards, as I mentioned at the top of the video. Now, this one has a pretty good implied total, 229.5 points, but what is a little bit concerning here is that Washington is a 9-point underdog in this game, indicating that this one could be a blowout. There's a potential here that this game is a runaway and that Philadelphia comes out and crushes this Washington Wizards team. So that's definitely something that raises a little bit of a red flag when you're looking to take overs on guys with lofty projections. So be very careful with that one. The next game is the Utah Jazz at the Memphis Grizzlies. This game tips off later on in the night, 225.5 points. Not a terrible total amount of points, but, not sky high at 230 or 240 like we've seen in some of these other games. But this one has Memphis as 5.5-point underdogs at home against this Utah Jazz team. So both of these spreads I wish were a little bit tighter. I would say that out of both of these games, the one that I expect to stay closer is probably this one, the Utah and Memphis game. Memphis has been playing fantastic basketball. If anyone puts up a fight here, it's probably the Grizzlies against the Jazz. So with those two games out of the way, let's go ahead and start talking about some of these player props. The first one I want to talk about is Joel Embiid, who's at 31.5 points. Based on what I saw earlier in the day, I would say that the under is the way that we may want to look here on Mr. Embiid. So let's go ahead and kick things off by going to number fire here. We've got him projected at 30.7 points, which indicates that we should be looking at the under on Embiid at 31.5. Let's go ahead and dig in a little further, though. We go to NBA.com and type in Embiid's name. And over here, we'll be able to take a look at how he's performed with his season averages, how he's performed in this playoff series thus far, and we can look at some previous matchups against the Washington Wizards in the regular season and kind of get a better idea of what we should expect with Joel Embiid here. So you can see that for the season, he scores 28.5 points per game. Now, that's obviously less than 31.5, indicating that, so far so good that the under is still an okay way to go here. But we're going to have to look at how he's performed in this playoff series thus far. So he has faced the Wizards 3 times so far in this series, playing just 28 minutes per game. And you can see his points per game averages at 29.3, which puts him right there around that season average mark of 28.5. So he has not really increased his scoring production in this series significantly versus where he scored the basketball for the regular season. So let's go ahead and click this traditional splits link here. We're going to go ahead and click advanced filters. We're going to change the segment from playoffs to all season, and then we'll move this from just all opponents to just the Washington Wizards so we can see how well he's done against them in his regular season matchups in terms of scoring. So he faced them 3 different times throughout the regular season. He played about 30 minutes per game. Now his scoring average was 30 points per game, which is still less than 31.5. So far, all signs are pointing to the under here on Joel Embiid. I have no reason to want to sway away from that or flip-flop and go with the over or fade this pick in any way. I think the under is looking like a strong play. I lay out all the evidence for you. I put it all out on the table, and then you can kind of get an idea of which way you should be going as well. So last but not least, we're over here on RotoWire. We type in Joel Embiid's name, and you can see that at 30.5 points, we got him on 2 different books here. One of these books is a -116 over. So a slight over. Those aren't great or strong odds in any way, but the other book here is even at -115 under, -115 over. So, I mean, based on all the averages that I'm seeing in previous matchups against Washington, both in the regular season and in this playoff series, I have no reason to believe that, he's going to go for 32 or more points here. I'm going to probably ride with the averages. I'm a numbers guy. I'm going to stick to the numbers here. But if you guys feel a different way about it, you can take the over on Joel Embiid at 31.5. I'm not. I'm probably going to click the under. Hope that this game is a blowout and that, he doesn't play in the fourth quarter much or at all. That, hopefully this game's a runaway and he doesn't see the court in the fourth quarter. But that's the way I'm going under on Joel Embiid at 31.5 points. The next guy I want to talk about is also a Philadelphia 76er. That is Danny Green, who's at 9.5 points today. Now, he caught fire in the last game against the Washington Wizards, ended up draining a bunch of threes, which put him over his points prop. I think he was at 9.5 the other day, too. So let's see if maybe 9.5 is good to go over or go under on for Danny Green today. So we're back to number fire. We type in Danny Green's name. You can see he's at 8.9 points. Now, that, if we round it up, is close to 9 points. So 9 points or less, and we take the under, we make money. So that is looking good. So far, the under is the way to go. So we type in Danny Green's name over on NBA.com. We got the season average of 9.5 points, which puts him right on the button here for where he's projected on PrizePicks today. So that's not really telling us too much, because at 9.5 points, that means you could go either for 9 or 10 points per game, right? It's kind of right there in the middle. Now, as far as the playoff series so far against the Washington Wizards, he's played 26.3 minutes per game. He is averaging 10.3 points per game, which puts him slightly over tonight's projection of 9.5. So a little bit of a red flag there. But still, this is one of those ones where it's kind of a coin flip at 9.5 points. Maybe there's not a whole lot of value to be had here. So we're going to click traditional splits. Let's go to advanced filters, change this to the Washington Wizards, and remove this playoff filter, and then we'll get a little picture here of how well he's played against Washington throughout the regular season. Now, he played them 3 different times this season, 26.7 minutes per game, and during that time, 9.7 points per game was his average. So a little bit of a boost versus his season averages of 9.5 points, but not a whole lot. I mean, this is, again, looking like one of those props where it's almost a coin flip. You could really go either way here and not be wrong. But let's take a look and see which way folks are going on the various sports books on this Danny Green 9.5 point prop. So we'll go over to RotoWire. We type in Danny Green's name. All of these sites are free, by the way. If this is your first time ever watching one of these videos, every site that I show you is absolutely free. You can go do this. All you need is a little bit of time and a little bit of know-how, and you can go do this yourself. So at 9.5 points, -129 on the under, 9.5 points, -116 on the under, and finally 9.5 points, we got him as a -133 on the under. So being that this can kind of go either way here, this prop, not seeing a ton of value. I'm probably just going to stick to riding with the different sports books out there at -133. Those are pretty good odds that he will stay under here. We just have to hope and pray that he doesn't catch fire again, because he's absolutely a 3-point sniper. When he gets hot, he can get going and he could rack up the points real quick. I mean, at 9.5 points, if he drains 4 threes, we're in trouble. So we just have to have kind of a more average type of game from Danny Green. Maybe a 2 or 3 3-point makes, and that's it for him. But yeah, I'll probably stick to the under on this one for Danny Green in these 9.5 points. All right, so with that one out of the way, this one's probably going to be one of the more controversial plays here. And I'm talking Ja Morant, who is quite possibly the hottest player in the NBA playoffs right now. Now, he's at 25.5 points, which is quite a bit, especially when you consider that his season averages are around 19 points per game. I mentioned at the top of the video that I've had some luck going against the grain on some of these picks here recently. Well, Ja Morant has been one of those guys who has just been absolutely on fire. There's no questioning that. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, when will the regression kick in? Now, tonight could be that night because across the board, everything that I looked at before hitting the record button on this video indicated that tonight he could go under 25.5 points. And you can see that here at 24.1 projected points on NumberFire. They like him to go under 25.5 points. So let's move over to NBA.com. Let's take a look at Ja Morant's numbers here a little bit. We'll open up his player card. And you can see that for the season, he was just scoring 19.1 points per game. Now, 19.1 points per game. Watch what happens when we go and look at this average over the course of these playoffs. So we'll change this from regular season to playoffs. And you could see that once this loads here, if it does load, it's going to give me problems, huh? Let's refresh. It's not going to load. It's not going to load. Well, that's okay. It's not going to load, but I could tell you this. He's averaging 33 points per game for the playoffs. So you go from 19 points per game all the way up to 33 points per game. At some point there has to be regression. Either that or Ja Morant has just overnight become the greatest scoring weapon in NBA playoff history. I mean, I don't know. You tell me, but I think that this could be a point where Ja Morant comes kind of back down to earth a little bit. Maybe he doesn't regress all the way down to 19 points per game. Maybe he drops down to like low 20s, but stays under 25.5. I just think that there's going to be a game coming where Ja Morant isn't going to put up those big numbers like we're accustomed to seeing throughout the playoffs. Now, if we look at RotoWire, we got him at 25.5 points across the board here. He's a minus 121 to go under, a minus 118 to go under, and last but not least, at 24.5 points, they like him to go over at a minus 125. So somewhere between 24.5 and 25.5 is 25 points. So maybe 25 points is the setup tonight. Looks like it to me. But I'm not really trusting this over on 25.5 points. So I'm probably going to take the under. Hopefully betting under on Ja Morant ends up working out. But I can understand why you might be hesitant or skeptical in doing so. But I'm going to go with it. The next guy we're going to talk about is Michael Conley Jr., who's at 17.5 points. So let's head back over to NumberFire and take a look at Mr. Conley's projected points today. He's at 17.6, indicating that we should be looking at a potential over here on Mike Conley at 17.6, but it's close. It is definitely close. So not a ton of value when you consider these projections versus where he's at PrizePicks at 17.5. So let's go do a little bit of homework here on Mike Conley Jr. Opening up his player card on NBA.com. Hopefully we'll have a little bit better luck here with Mike Conley than we did with Ja Morant. But anyway, you can see that for the season, 16.2 points per game. That puts him under 17.5. So kind of flies in the face of tonight's projection of 17.6 a little bit, doesn't it? Now we're going to try and see if we could get this working here for Mike Conley, but doesn't look like we're having any success here. So let's go ahead and open up another site. We'll go to Basketball Reference, NBA.com. For some reason, you could see the wheels are spinning, but we ain't getting anywhere. So we're going to try on the fly here. Mike Conley. We'll go to his playoff performances for this year. See if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys to see it easier. There you go. You can see that he's playing 35 minutes per game, and his points per game average is actually 23 points. Now, Mike Conley has only averaged 23 or more points in a playoff series one other time, and that was back in 2016-17. So he's kind of having a little bit of a resurgence in this year's playoffs, but 23 points per game, I don't think that's sustainable for Mike Conley. especially when you consider that Donovan Mitchell's back in the mix. I'm sure he'll take on an even larger role as this playoff series rolls on. So at 23 points, I got to imagine that that's going to regress a little bit. Now, his regular season scoring average was 16.2 points. So, this could be one of those games, one of those situations again where, he goes from this sky high number and it kind of regresses a little bit with like Donovan Mitchell back in the lineup, and with this game expected to be a little bit, in terms of a little bit of a blowout potential. So let's go back over to RotoWire. We'll type in Conley's name. Sorry for the technical difficulties, by the way, but we're working through it. We're making it happen. Now at 17.5 points, you see he's a minus 122 under. Now over here, they've got him as a slight over at minus 116. But the third book that we take a look at here, he's a minus 118. So 2 out of 3 books, the action is favoring the under on Mike Conley at 17.5 points. That projection of 17.6, that's not enough to persuade me to believe that he's going to go over 17.5. I mean, 17.5 versus 17.6, do we really feel super confident in that? It's pretty much essentially saying the same thing. So I think in this case, I'm going to go under as well on Mike Conley here and hope that his numbers regress a little bit. 23 points per game in this playoff series, I just don't think it's sustainable. This could be one of those games where he falls back down closer to where his season averages are. So there you have it for Mike Conley Jr. Now, we got a couple of rebound props, 3 to be exact, that I want to talk about. So we're going back to Philadelphia here. So let's scroll back up. And we're going to talk about Ben Simmons, who's at 7.5 rebounds today. 7.5 boards. Let's head back over to NumberFire and take a look at where they have him projected in terms of rebounds. So we click the rebound column. We do a little search here for Simmons. And you can see that they've got him at 7.8 rebounds, which is pretty close to 8 boards. If we round it up, that would be 8, obviously. And that would put him as a position to go over 7.5 rebounds. So let's move over to NBA.com. We'll take a look at Ben Simmons. I don't know what's going on with NBA.com's website, but for the season, 7.2 rebounds per game. Not bad for Ben Simmons, but it is a little bit under 7.5 here. Let's see if it's going to load for Ben Simmons. It's not. I'm about ready to give up on NBA.com. So we're going back to Basketball Reference, it looks like. We'll type in Ben Simmons' name, and you can see that regular season per game, his rebounds per game, 7.2. We talked about that. Playoffs, now that's where things get interesting because they go up to 9.7 rebounds per game. So almost 2 to 3 rebounds more per game in this playoff series against the Washington Wizards. So he's been rebounding the basketball at a very high clip in this series against the Wizards. So 9.7 boards is a bit high. I don't think that he stays at 9.7 rebounds, but I do think that 8 rebounds is definitely in the realm of possible outcomes here for Ben Simmons. So I don't mind taking the over on Ben Simmons so far. Now we're back over to RotoWire. We're going to click the rebound section and type in Ben Simmons' name. Now we've got him at 7.5 boards across 3 different sites. We got him as a minus 134 to go over, a minus 130 to go over, and a minus 128 to go over. So all 3 of these books here like him to go over 7.5 rebounds. Now, if you think back, there was a game in this series where he pulled down 12 boards. Do I think that happens today? No, but he is a big old point guard. He's basically a power forward who plays point guard. So I do think that there is some legitimacy here to playing the over on 7.5 boards, and I think he could pull down about 8 to 9 rebounds tonight. So I'm going to take Ben Simmons on the over and stick with my guns on this one. The next guy we're talking about is Bradley Beale, who's at 5.5 boards. Now that's a bit high in my opinion. Bradley Beal's been somewhere around 4 to 5 rebounds, at least for the regular season, but we're going to take a look at his numbers and see how well he's been rebounding in this series. So first thing we got to do is find the projections for Bradley Beal's rebound. So we're going to type in his name into NumberFire. He's at 5.4 rebounds per game, rebounds tonight, which puts him pretty close to this 5.5 rebound prop. So 5.4, 5.5, not a ton of value, but a slight edge nonetheless to the under, meaning he should be closer to 5 boards tonight than 6 according to these projections. So we're going to move it over to NBA.com. We're going to type in Bradley Beal's name. Let's open up his player card. We could at least use NBA.com to see his player card here. You can see that for the season, he's at 4.7 rebounds per game, putting him under this 5.5 rebound prop. So the under is looking like the way to go according to his season averages. So let's type in Beal's name. Not Beak, Beal. Anyway, we click the playoff tab here, and you can see that in this series, he's played 3 games against this Philadelphia 76ers team. He is averaging 6.7 rebounds per game, which actually is pretty surprising. He has never really been a strong rebounding guard, so kind of suspicious here when you see his rebound numbers so high. Is this a game where Bradley Beal possibly regresses in the rebound column? Maybe he comes back down to earth and lands on like 5 rebounds, 4 rebounds like he has for the season averages, especially if this game blows out, right? He may not even be in there late into this ball game. So we're going to head back to RotoWire. Let's type in Bradley Beal's name. You've got him at 5.5 boards across the industry today. Now, this first book has him as a -115 to actually go over here, which is kind of interesting. Given what we just uncovered. Now this next site, -114 to go under, and last but not least, a -120 to go under. So we got 2 out of the 3 books suggesting that the under is the way to go here on Bradley Beal. One of the books does, however, have him going over, and he has been rebounding pretty well in this season, or in this series, I should say, versus the Philadelphia 76ers thus far. But I'm looking to possibly target the under here on Bradley Beal, hoping that this rebound number, this rebound average, stays down around the 4 to 5 rebound mark. So I'm going to take the under on Bradley Beal and these boards tonight. All right, the next prop I want to talk about is Joval. That's Jonas Valenciunis, the big man for the Memphis Grizzlies, who's at 12.5 boards. And I'm liking the over here. 12.5 seems a little bit too low for Joval, but we're going to do the homework once again here on Jonas Valenciunis. So let's go back to Number Fire. We'll type in Valenciunis' name. And you can see that he is the 2nd highest projected rebounder on the slate, only topped by Rudy Gobert, his opponent tonight on the Utah Jazz. So that's kind of interesting. Now, 13.2 rebounds is a good indication that the over is the way we should be looking here. We should consider playing the over on Jonas Valenciunis at 12.5 boards, because 13 or more and we take the over, we're going to make money, right? So let's head over to NBA.com. We'll type in Valenciunis' name. We'll pull up his player card and make it nice and easy for us to see. And you can see that for the season, 12.5 boards is where he is at. That's what he's averaged over the course of the season. Now that puts him right in line with his projection tonight on PrizePicks. So do you think that Jonas Valenciunis is going to have an average rebounding type of night? Or do you think that he has a slightly above average rebounding type of night? Hopefully it's an above average rebounding type of night if we're looking to take the over. So we'll head back over to Basketball Reference. We'll type in Valenciunis. And we'll open up his player page here, and let's go down to the playoffs tab. And you can see that in 3 games against this Utah Jazz team, he's played almost 35 minutes per game. Go to TRB, which stands for total rebounds. He's averaging just 10.3 rebounds per game versus this Utah Jazz team. Now that is obviously lower than where his season averages are. So I like this spot for him to bounce back and get more than 10.3 rebounds in this one. I hope that this is a game where he can get closer to where his season averages are of 12.5 rebounds, 13 rebounds in this situation. So let's head back over to RotoWire. We'll type in Valenciunis' name. And across the industry here, we've got him at 12.5 boards on 3 different books. Now, here's a -129 for an over. We got him as a -122 for an over. And then last but not least, this book has him even Steven at -115 under and -115 over. But 2 out of the 3 books having pretty decent odds on the over. I like that. I do like the fact that his season averages of 12.5 boards are at least in the neighborhood of this 12.5 rebound prop over on PrizePicks. So I think I'm looking to take the over here on Jonas Valenciunis in this one. And I don't think that 10 rebounds is in the books for him tonight. I think he's going to go over that and hopefully goes over 12.5. So that's where I'm going on Jonas Valenciunis tonight. And let's wrap this video up with a 3-point prop. We're going back to Philadelphia. We're going back to Mr. Degeneration X himself, Joel Embiid. Hopefully he doesn't tell us to suck it in tonight's 3-point prop here. So we got him at 1.5 3-pointers. I'm looking to take the under on Joel Embiid. Let's see if we could do a little bit of research here, and we'll just do that on Basketball Reference. So we'll type in Embiid's name, open up his player card, and let's look at his season averages real quick in terms of 3-point attempts and makes and all that. So for the season, he attempts 3 3-pointers per game, and on those 3 attempts makes 1.1. So more often than not, he only makes 1 3-pointer versus 2. So if you think about 1 and 2 3-pointers, 1.1, obviously closer to 1 than it is 2. So that's a good sign in terms of the under. By the way, that is good for 37% 3-point field goal percentage. So if we click this playoff tab here, flip things over, you can see he's appeared in 3 games against this Washington Wizards team, playing just 28 minutes per game. Pretty low minute number there. His 3-point attempts, though, 3.7 attempts per game, and he's making 2 out of those 3.7, which is good for 54%. Guys, this isn't sustainable. Joel Embiid is a great player. He is not a 54% 3-point shooter. 3.7 attempts. Do I think that that's going to continue? I mean, maybe, but I don't see him continuing to make 2 3-pointers per game. It's just got to regress at some point. And I kind of like this situation as one where he falls back down to earth. These 3-point percentages dip. And that's the way I'm approaching this. So I do like this under so far for Joel Embiid. Let's click the 3-point section over on RotoWire, find Embiid in this list of players here. And we've got him at 1.5 across the industry. Now look at these odds, because these are pretty strong on the under. -134, -140, and finally a -143. So it seems like people who are slapping down their hard-earned cash on this 1.5 3-point prop for Joel Embiid kind of agree with me. They don't think that he's going to continue to shoot over 50%, 55% from beyond the arc. And I kind of believe it too, because I don't see him making 2 or more 3-pointers tonight. This is one of my favorite props, just based on everything that I see. I'm not believing that Joel Embiid has turned into a sniper overnight. So hopefully he regresses. Hopefully he sticks down to 0 or maybe even just 1 3-point make. And this one cashes out for us. But that's going to do it for today's video. We're looking to bounce back. We didn't finish last week very strong with the Thursday and Friday video. But as I said, the weekend has been good to me. Hopefully it's been good to you. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button before you go. Again, double check. Make sure you're subscribed and notifications turned on so you don't miss any content. Appreciate you guys tuning in. My name's CJ. Good luck tonight if you're playing on PrizePicks or anywhere else that you play single stat player props. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.